Hello, welcome to this new VMC Helix Remedyforce webinar. My name is Jair Ramos, and today we're going to leveraging request definitions. Remember that if you have any questions, put those on the chat. We will answer those there. Let's review the agenda for today. Today we are going to do a quick overview about request definitions. Then we'll analyze a business case scenario, and based on that business case scenario, we will be creating and configure a service request. We will also configure service request settings, and then I'm going to show you how to edit, copy, or delete request definitions. So let's do a quick overview about request definitions. Service request management provides an online service catalog from which clients can view and request services that are available. The IT department and other business departments within an account define offered services. Publish those in the self-service. The benefits of using service request management are a standardized catalog of requests and tracking and management of requests from start to finish. So now let me show you what I mean with this. So let's go to org, and here let's go to the Remedyforce self-service. Here on the Remedyforce self-service, you can see under requested service we have a kind of catalog where you can see different services that are offered right now in my org. So for example, if I select software, I have these two different software where my users can request. You will see also a few more that I currently have in my org, but let me show you how you can build one. Let's review the business case scenario. The Director of Human Resources Department for Acme Corporation asks you to create a new request definition for new hires. He provides you the following requirements. The service request needs to have the following inputs: first name, which must be required, last name is also required, start date, which is also required, a lookup to select the manager of the user, a pick list to select the employee type, a pick list to select the job level, and also a checkbox to select if the new employee will need additional system access. If the checkbox is checked, a multi-select pick list must show up displaying the available option for system access, and then the service request needs to be assigned to the human resources queue. So now with this information, we can start creating a request definition. So in order to do that, let's go to our org. So now let's go to the Remedyforce Administration tab. Under the Remedyforce Administration tab, go to Configure Application and then select Request Definitions. So now let's click on Request Definition and let's click New. So here we need to fill the title. In this case, I'm going to put a new hire request. So here we need to select a category. In case you don't have a category for this service request, we can create a new one, but I think I already have one under Human Resources, and I have Employee Onboarding, so I'm going to use that one. Here you can add a description for this specific service request, but it's not required. Then Service. We can create a new service in case we don't have one, but let me check the available services that I have. So I'm going to select Human Resources, and for Service Offering, we can do the same thing. We can create a new one, or we can search for an existing one. And I'm going to use Employee Onboarding. Okay, here we need to create a service request template and also an incident template. We will create an incident template first because the service request template is associated with the incident template that is right here. You can create a new email template here, or the other way that we have in order to create a template is, let's go to Home and let's type template, select templates. And here you can create a template for this specific request definition that we are creating. Just to give you an example, I already have these two, one for instance and another request detail for another request definition that I have in my org. So now let's go and quickly create an incident template. Click on New Incident Template. Here, let's provide a name. In this case, I'm going to use something like New Hire SR just to make a reference that it is a service request template. Okay, and here we can add even more values from the incident object. Let's click Save. I'm gonna add something later, but in this case, okay. So now that we have created the incident template, we are ready to create the service request detail template. So let's provide a name. As you can see, I already have the incident template that I have created. In this case, I'm gonna put RD just to have a reference that is a request detail template. Let's save this. Let's close the window. And as you can see, I have created those two templates. So here we can add additional information to this specific service request, such as price and availability details. For this particular case, based on the request, it doesn't say that we need to add some information here. Here you will see a checkbox that also says make online. So if we check this checkbox, it means that this service request is going to be available on the self-service. So let's check this checkbox. You have also another one for showing mobile in case you are using the Salesforce mobile app. And also the other checkbox is automatically submit for approval. We will check this particular checkbox later. We also have an image. So probably you're wondering where is that image. So let's go to the Remedyforce self-service. So here let's click on request a service. And let's open any of these categories. In this case, I'm going to select software. And here you can see a picture besides the request definition. So that's something that you can configure right here. But in this case, we won't add any image. So in order to configure the other tabs, we need to click save. Okay, so once it is saved, we can start creating our inputs. So now we are ready to start creating our inputs. Here you will see a text field that says user instructions. Here you can add additional information related to this particular service request. So we can start creating our first input. So for first name, we can use a text field. We don't need to use a text area or a text area range. With a text field is enough. So let's click next. So as per instructions, we need to put the input name, which is first name. We also have a tooltip, but in this case, we don't need to help customers to know how to put a first name. And we need to select the checkbox required because that's a required field. We also have a few more options that we will check those later. For example, if I click validate, it will ask me the minimum number of characters for this field. But in this case, it is not required. So I just want to show you that option. So let's click save. And now click cancel. And as you can see, we have created our first input. So let's create our next input, which is last name. A text field is also enough for this input prompt question. So let's put the name, last name. It is also required. And we can use the option save anew to create our next input. So the next input is start date. So we have date, a date, and time. So the one that we need in this case is date. So let's click on date and click next. Let's provide a name for this input prompt, which is start date. For this input, we need to also select the checkbox required. So let's check the checkbox and click save anew. So the next input that we need to create is a lookup to select the manager of the user that is going to be hired. So let's click lookup, and here let's click on the lookup field and let's search for user. Okay, let's click on user and click OK. Here you can add filters in case you want. So for example, we can create a new lookup filter. Here you can configure a filter for this specific lookup. It could be required or optional. So let me give you an example. So if you have a checkbox or any other field that help you to identify that the user is a manager, so you can say something, okay, is this user manager equals true, so only display the manager names. But in this case, there is no lookup filter required, so let's click on no lookup filter. So now let's put up input prompt name. In this case, we don't have any requirement to set this input to required, hidden, conditional, or display in the second column. Let's just put the input prompt name and click save anew. So the next input that we need to create is a pick list to select the employee type. So as you can see here, we have the option to select pick list. So let's click on the radio button and click next. Here let's provide an input prompt name, which is employee type. So here we can start adding our values. So in this case, let me check the list that I have. So the first value is going to be full-time. So let's go here and put the same value in both columns. So let's go to the next one, part-time, and let's click add. Let's add the same value in both columns. And the last one, which is contractor, let's do the same process, add, and let's put the value on both columns. So now that we add the values, let's click Save and New. And let's create our next input. So this one is also a pick list. So let's click on the radio button for pick list and click Next. So now let's provide an input prompt name for this input field, which is job level. And we can add the values here. The first one is intern. Let's put the other one. Let's click Add and put entry. I mean, this is just some random values that I'm just putting here. I mean, you can put the values that you need based on the requirements. And just to test, let me add some other two values, such as intermediate. Let's copy the value and put it on the second column, and the last one, which is going to be senior. So let's add the same values for both columns. Here also you can see at the third column, which is default value. We can set up a default value if it is needed, but based on the requirements, we don't need to put a default value. Let's click Save and New, and let's create the next input. So the next one is going to be a checkbox. As you can see, it is on the first position, checkbox. Let's click Next. And here we need to add the following question. Does your new hire require additional system access? And that's the only thing that we need to do. So let's go and create the next one. The next one is also a pick list to select the system name that the user will need access for. Okay, here we need to put the input prompt name, which is system name. So let's copy the value that I have here in my notes and just put it as input prompt name. And the display values. We need to follow the same process that we've been following when we create a pick list. So the first, let's go to the second one, finance. And we need to do the same process for all the options that we have. And again, I mean, this is just a few options that I have on my notes. You need to create your request definition based on the requirements that you need. So you can add even more values if you want. In this case, I will just add a few, just to show you how it works. So now that we finished putting all the values, if you remember, this list must show up if the previous checkbox is checked. So let me show you how you can do that. Under prompt question properties, let's check the checkbox for conditional display if. Here we can select the checkbox equals true. So logical operator none, because this is the only logical operation that we need to do. You can add even more based on previous input. Let's click add and save. Okay. Let's click save. Okay, as you can see, the record has been successfully saved, and we can click cancel. And you will see the list of all the inputs that we created right now. You will also see some columns in order to see if the field or input is required, or if it is hidden, the column that it belongs to, if it has some conditionals, and also if it invokes a template. We will check that specific case later on this webinar. So now we have finished with the first part of the requirement. As you can see, we are missing something. The service request needs to be assigned to the human resources queue. So I'm going to show you a little trick in order to accomplish this requirement. So in order to do that, let's go to org again, and we need to modify the instance template that we created. So let's take the name and let's go to templates, and let's search for that specific template, new hire SR. Let's search, open the template. So probably you already know this, but here you can select all the available fields that are on the incident object. And here we need to select owner ID, which means queue. And if you select this lookup field, you will see all the queues that are available for service requests. In this case, I'm going to select human resources and click add. And now once the service request is created, it will be assigned to the human resources queue. So let's click save OK. So now we have finished with the first part of the requirements. So the next requirements are, the first one is the request should be approved by the manager that was selected on the lookup. Then after the manager approves the record, it must be approved by the manager of Human Resources Department. So now let me show you how you can build this. In order to do that, let's go back to our org. And it means that we need to create an approval process. So let's go to setup. Let's open in a different tab. And under the quick find, let's go to approval process. You can type approval process to take you there. Select approval process. Here you need to select the related object, which is incident. Even if we are creating a service request and incidents share the same object. And now here we need to click on create approval process. In this case, I'm going to use the first option. And we need to provide a name for this new approval process. In this case, I'm going to put something like a new hire request, just to make a reference that this approval process belongs to that specific request. Here we need to assign a template that is going to be sent for this approval process. We already have one out of the box, so we can search for approval and select incident approval request email. And here I'm gonna select this checkbox just to have the bottom in case someone needs to recall for approval or submit it manually. Something that I would like to show you is that we now have the manager name field on our incident object. I'm going to show you something that we can do in order to create that. As you can see, it doesn't exist, manager name. We don't have it available. So let me show you how we can build that. So let's go to object and let's open the object manager in a different tab. So on the quick find, let's go and type incident. And let's select incident. So here, let's go to fields and relationship, and we need to create a lookup field for the user object. Let's click new. And here on the list, you will see the radio button for lookup relationship. So let's go and click on that. Okay, and now let's scroll down and click next. And related to here, we need to select the user object because that needs to be a lookup for the users, especially for the managers, but we need the lookup for users. So now we can change the name to be manager name. I mean, this is up to you, but for my particular case, I'm gonna select or choose manager name as a field level, and I'm gonna make it visible for all the profiles. So let's click next, and I don't want to display this field on the layouts. It will be like a kind of hidden. So let's click save. So the next thing that we need to do is let's go to the request definition and let's go to the one that we are creating, new hire. And there is a tab named fulfillment. As you can see under general information, input, and the next one is fulfillment. Let's click on that one. And here you can see the request detail template that we created a few minutes ago. So we need to select that template, and actually we need to match the value that the person who is going to create the request definition go and map that specific value to the field that we have just created on the incident object. So if we go back here, input, we have manager name. So it needs to put the same value on the field that we have just created on the incident object. So in order to do that, let's go back to fulfillment. Once we select the template, we need to click add. Here it will display all the available fields that belongs to the incident object. For example, manager name that we have just created, manager name, and it will check the inputs that we have, manager name. So now we can click add and we'll automatically match both values. So let's click save. So now let's continue with the approval process that we are creating, and now we need to select a criteria for this approval process to be triggered by this service request. In this case, I'm going to use the name of the service request. So let's go and select service request title equals new hire request. So once the ticket is created, it will check the approval process and see for which one of my approval process that matches. So now we need to select the person who is going to approve the record. In order to do that, we have different options, but I'm going to select automatically assign to approvers and related user, and it should be manager name, but I see that I don't have it in the list. Probably I will need to refresh the page. Okay, so let's refresh the page. We have just created the field and I didn't refresh this page. So let's go and refresh the page. So now let's quickly put all the values again. Let's put the name of the approval process, which is new hire request. Let's go and select the incident service request title. Remember that this is going to be the criteria for this approval process to be triggered after we create the record. So let's search for incident service request title equals new hire request. Okay, and now let's put automatically assigned to approvers, related user, and as you can see now I see manager name, and click save. Now let's click OK. And now on this window will show you some information that you need to be aware of. In this case, I'm going to just click on view approval process detail page, and here will give you an overview about the approval process that we are creating. As you can see, it is not active right now, and here we need to add additional things to our approval process. Okay, so as a part of our request, it says that we need to add another approver for this approval process, which is going to be the manager of the human resources department. In order to do that, we need to create a new approval step. I'm going to provide a name like human resources manager. Here you can put a description in case you need. As you can see, it's step number 2. Let's click next, and I'm going to select all the records should enter this step. Let's click next, and here we need to select again the option automatically assign to approvers, and we are going to specify which user. In this case, Luke Adams is the manager of the human resources department in my org. Let's click save, and as you can see, I have 2 approval steps. One is the manager of the user, and the other one is the manager of the human resources department. So now we are ready to move on to the next requirement. So after the record is approved, a task needs to be triggered. It needs to have all the inputs entered on the request definition into the description field and assign it to the facilities management queue. So in order to do that, let me show you how you can achieve this. Let's go back to your org. Let's go to the request definition that we are working on. Okay, so here as you can see, we have the fulfillment process. Here we can create a task template or a change request. In this case, we need to create a task template, so let's click on task. And you can select an existing one, but in this case, we need to create a new one. So let's click on create new template, and here you can see the template for task, and let's provide a name for this new template. I'm gonna put something like new hire facilities just to make a reference, and here we can select some values that we can predefine. So for example, I'm gonna select impact, low, add, and here we can also select a value for these fields. I'm gonna select urgency just to show you how it works. Let's select medium and click add, and now we can save the template. Okay, now let's click OK. It has been successfully saved. Now we need to select the template, and we need to add all the information that was entered for the service request into the description field for the task template. So let's click on the task template, and here on the map field section, let's click add. Here remember that the first column will show us all the fields that belongs to the task object. So here we need to find the description field. So let's scroll down and find description. Okay, here is description, and here is the list of all the inputs that we have for this particular service request, and all needs to be mapped to the description field. Let's click add. Okay, those were successfully added. Let's scroll up and click save. Okay, it has been successfully saved. So something important is to select the automatically submit for approval. It means that once the record is created, it will be automatically submitted for approval. So let's click save. Now that we have that checkbox checked, let's go back to our approval process. So now let me show you something that a lot of people missed. If you have a task that is going to be triggered by a service request, under final approval actions, we need to add a specific action, which is a checkbox that we need to check that is going to trigger our task after the record is approved. So let's click on field update, and there is one out of the box that you can use, which is field update approved. Let's select that one and click save. So this is going to make our task trigger. Sometimes people miss this step and the tasks are not getting triggered. Actually, let me show you what it does. If we open that specific action, and what it does is basically there is an checkbox on the incident object named approved, and it is going to check that checkbox to true. So let's make sure that you have this specific step on your final approval actions in order to trigger the task. Otherwise, the task won't be triggered. Okay? So another thing that we are missing from here is that the task must be assigned to the facilities management queue. So let's go and modify the template that we have created for task. Remember that if you want to modify the template, you can do it on the Remedyforce administration tab. You can type or search for templates, click on templates, and here you can use the search to find your template. In this case, let me type new hire and click search, and here you will find the one that we created for task. And here we need to select owner ID. It's the similar thing that we did for the service request template, and let's select facilities management, click add and save the template. So let's click OK, and we are ready to continue with the next requirement. So now we can close this window, and the next one is once the first task is closed by the facilities management queue, another task should be triggered and assigned to the infrastructure management queue. Only if the checkbox to select the new employee will need additional system access is checked. So now let me show you how you can do that. So let's go to your org and let's create a new template, just like we did a couple of minutes ago, and click on create new template. Here let's provide a name. I'm gonna put something like new hire, and then IM, which is infrastructure management, just as a reference for me. And here you can also add some values. I'm gonna do the same thing I did for the other one. I'm gonna set up a value for urgency, and I'm gonna put another value for the impact. So let's scroll down and select impact, and we can select any value here. It depends on your requirement. And if you remember, we need to select the queue that is going to be assigned this particular task. So let's select owner ID and let's search for infrastructure management and click add. Now we can click save, click OK. So remember that this particular task must be triggered only if the checkbox that we created is checked. So let's go to inputs and let's find the checkbox that we created, which is this one, And now we need to click edit. So under prompt question properties, there is one option that says invoke a template. So basically we need to select the template, which is new hire, infrastructure management. If the checkbox is true, it's going to trigger this particular template. So let's click add and OK, and let's click save. Okay, it has been successfully saved. Let's go back to the fulfillment tab. Let's scroll up and click save. So the last requirement is the request definition needs to be available to only the users with the human resources permission set. So now let me show you how you can do that. So let's go to the request definition and select the entitlement tab. And here you can see two options, self-service and Remedyforce console. Remember that you can also create a request definition or a service request using the Remedyforce console. In this case, let's start configuring this for the self-service. You can select an account, or you can make it available for certain profiles or permission set. In this case, I'm going to make it available for permission set as per the request. And as you can see, I don't have the permission set for human resources, so let's quickly create that one. So let's go to setup. Okay, so now on the quick find, let's go to permission sets. Probably you already know this process. In case you don't know the process, let me show you. So let's go to permission sets. And here you will see the list of permission sets that I have available in my org right now. Let's click new. Let's provide a name for this one. In this case, I'm gonna put the label human resources. I don't need the license for this particular permission set. Let's click save. And now we have created our permission set. So it won't show up yet. We need to refresh the request definition. There is a button to click refresh. Let's scroll down and change that to permission sets again. And as you can see, now we can see the human resources permission set. So let's select that one, and we can also make the change for the Remedyforce console. So let's configure this request definition for the Remedyforce console. This is a cool feature where you can select the access for both consoles. So let's do the same process and click save. So the only thing that we are missing is to activate our approval process. You can add even more things to our approval process, but just for testing, I'm gonna make it easier. So now, let me show you something. I mean, if you remember, we made this available only for the people who has the human resources permission set. So in this case, my account as an admin, I don't have the human resources permission set assigned. So let's go to the self-service and search for new hire. As you can see, I have just a few service requests related to new hire, but not the one that we created. Anyway, let's go to request a service and let's validate the same thing under human resources. As you can see, I don't have the new hire request that we created. So now I'm gonna test this with someone in my org who has the human resources permission set. So let's go to users. In order to do that, we need to go to setup, quick find, search for user, and let's see which one of my users has the human resources permission set. So in this case, I'm gonna take as an example Charlotte. So let's click on the user and let's just confirm that she has the human resources permission set. So let's scroll down, and yes, she has the human resources permission set. So let's click login, and we need to go to the Remedyforce self-service. Okay, here we can search for new hire, so you can see the difference. So under service request, you will see that we have 4 records, and you can see the new hire request. Anyway, let's validate the same thing under request a service, human resources category, and you can see new hire request. Let's create one example first. Let's put first name This is random data in order to fill out the server's request. Let's pick a start date, a manager name. In this case, I'm going to select my user as a test. And let's put the values for the other inputs that we have. And as you can see, once we check the checkbox, the system name is showing up, but based on the requirements, if you remember, it must be a multi-select pick list. So we are missing that. So let's go and fix it. So let's go back to our admin account, and we need to go back to the Remedyforce administration tab. So under configure application, let's go to request definitions again. Select the request definition tab, and let's open the new hire request. Okay, so now let's go to inputs again and modify that specific input, which is system name. We can click edit, and let's make this particular pick list allow multiple selection. So let's check this checkbox, and now we can click save. So now let's go and verify the changes. So let's go and log in as Charlotte again. So let's go to setup, and then on the quick find, let's go to users. Let's log in as Charlotte, and let's go again to the Remedyforce self-service. On describe your issue, you can type new hire. Let me show you how you can do it from here, but it's the same process. Just go to server request and type new hire, and here let's fill the data again. Remember that it is very important to put a value if the field says required. Let's select the manager name, the employee type, the job level, and let's select the checkbox, and now you can see how it changes. So now with your mouse and on the control key on your keyboard, you can multi-select different values. Okay, let's create another one, and this test we won't check the checkbox, so you will see the difference. So the first task will trigger, the first service request will trigger two different tasks, and this test is going to trigger only one because we won't select the checkbox for this particular case. So let's click submit, and we have created two different records. So now let's go back to your account as an admin, and let's see on the console those two records. Now that we are on the Remedyforce console, let's go to service request, and here you will see the two records that we created. So let's open both of them. Let's take the first one. Let's go to details, and here you will see the approval that was triggered. I'm gonna approve the record, and you will see that it will need the second approver. So let's close this window and click reload. So let me approve the record again as look. So let's click approve, and now you will see that two tasks are going to be triggered automatically, and one of them contains all the inputs from the request definition. So the process that we created is working as expected. And let me just open the task just to confirm a couple of things. So impact urgency, the value is correct, and also the queue. So now let's do the same test with the second service request. Let me approve the record, and for this particular case you will see that only one task is going to be triggered. Let me approve the record again. Approve, and let's confirm that only one task was created. Perfect. So only one task was created. So our process is working fine. Remember that you can customize your service request even more. We have another tab named Display Options, where you can select which data can be available on the Remedyforce self-service for the user who submitted the request. In this case, we don't need to work on this tab right now, but you have the option. Remember that on entitlement, you can configure who can have access to this particular service request. You can do it with accounts, profiles, permission sets. And on inputs, you can add more inputs, are more conditionals, invoke templates. You can hide some fields. Let me show you a couple of things more about request definition. So on the general information, you will see a checkbox name, make it online. Remember that with this checkbox, you can make this particular service request online on the self-service. Let me show you how you can delete a request definition. You can just select the request definition that you want to delete and click on the X icon, click yes, and it was automatically deleted. Here you can filter if the service request is online or not. Let me show you another thing. So let's click on the service request, and here you can deactivate the service request for both consoles. I mean the Remedyforce console and the Remedyforce self-service. The one that is below here only applies for the self-service, and the option that is here applies for both places, the Remedyforce console and the self-service. So let me provide you some reference that you can check in case you need more information about request definition. As I mentioned, there are a lot of more things that you can do. As you could see, creating a request definition is not that difficult. It has a lot of benefits that you can use, and you can take advantage of those. We were able to create and configure a service request. We also test a service request. Remember that this webinar is going to be available on our YouTube channel, so you can watch this later. You can also see more content that we have on our channel. If you have any question, please contact technical support. You can do it using the webpage, phone, or email. Remember to follow us on all our social media on BMC communities, Facebook and Twitter. Thank you to attend this webinar about request definition. Stay tuned for the next one.